The morning sun poured golden light across the sparkling harbor, turning every wave into a sheet of shimmering glass, but nothing could have prepared billionaire CEO Celeste Rowan for what she saw when a charity event brought her face to face with a quiet Navy single father wearing the one necklace that should have been buried forever with her late husband. The silver anchor pendant hanging against his chest was unmistakable, carrying a tiny hand-engraved compass on the back that only 2 people in the world had ever known about. Her heart stopped. Her breath disappeared. The world around her faded into silence as impossible questions crashed through her mind. How could a complete stranger be wearing the most precious keepsake of the man she had loved beyond measure? Was it stolen, gifted, or had the past she spent 12 painful years mourning been hiding a truth so unbelievable that it would change both their lives forever? Before we continue this unforgettable story, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales if you believe that love has a way of finding its way home, even when hope seems completely lost. Celeste Rowan had built one of the country's most successful shipping technology companies from the ashes of unbearable grief. Years earlier, she had been a young architect deeply in love with Elias Rowan, a naval engineer whose optimism could brighten the darkest day. They had dreamed of traveling the world together after his final overseas assignment, buying a peaceful home near the ocean where they would raise children surrounded by laughter instead of board meetings and deadlines. But those dreams disappeared when an accident at sea claimed the lives of several crew members during a rescue mission. Elias was officially declared dead after weeks of unsuccessful searches. No body was ever recovered, only scattered belongings and heartbreaking reports. Among the missing items listed in the investigation was the custom silver anchor necklace Celeste had commissioned on their 5th wedding anniversary. It carried a tiny engraved compass with the words, "Always find your way home." Since the necklace was never recovered, she believed it had sunk forever beneath the endless ocean along with the love of her life. Grief transformed Celeste into someone she barely recognized. Instead of allowing sadness to consume her completely, she buried herself in work, determined to honor Elias by creating safer maritime technology capable of preventing future tragedies. Her company expanded beyond imagination, employing thousands of people and funding countless charitable programs supporting military families, Coast Guard volunteers, and children who had lost parents serving their communities. Newspapers admired her brilliance, investors praised her determination, and magazines celebrated her success, but none of them knew that every sunrise still reminded her of the man she never stopped missing. Wealth filled her calendar but never her heart. Every evening, she returned to a beautiful mansion that echoed with silence. On the opposite side of the city lived Nolan Mercer, a Navy logistics officer raising his 8-year-old daughter Iris alone after his wife passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier. Life had taught Nolan that strength often looked ordinary. It looked like preparing breakfast before sunrise, helping Iris finish her homework after exhausting workdays, repairing worn-out shoes instead of buying new ones, and always smiling even when bills piled higher than hope. He never complained because every sacrifice was made for the little girl who believed her father could fix anything. Around his neck hung the silver anchor necklace he had worn every day since he was 19 years old. To Nolan, it wasn't expensive jewelry. It was the only memory of the man who had saved his life when he was a frightened teenager struggling to survive after losing both parents in a devastating storm. Years before joining the Navy, Nolan had drifted through shelters and temporary jobs, believing the world had forgotten him. One afternoon at a coastal volunteer center, he slipped from a damaged dock while helping move supplies. Unable to swim well and trapped beneath tangled ropes, he thought his life was ending. A young naval engineer happened to witness the accident, diving into the freezing water without hesitation. The stranger pulled Nolan to safety, stayed with him until paramedics arrived, bought him a warm meal, and listened to his story without judgment. Before leaving, the man removed the silver anchor necklace from his own neck and placed it in Nolan's trembling hands. He explained that everyone deserved a second chance and that the necklace should remind him to keep moving toward hope, no matter how violent life storms became. That single act of kindness inspired Nolan to rebuild his life, finish school, and eventually enlist in the Navy so he could help others the same way he had once been helped. The rescuer never accepted thanks and disappeared before Nolan even learned much about him except for one first name that time gradually blurred into memory. The annual Harbor Hope Festival gathered business leaders, veterans, volunteers, and military families to celebrate community service beneath clear blue skies. Children laughed while sailboats drifted peacefully across calm water. Music floated gently through the air, creating a joyful atmosphere that stood in beautiful contrast to the emotional discoveries waiting just ahead. Celeste attended as the event's largest donor, while Nolan volunteered to organize family activities for military children. Their paths crossed near a booth distributing backpacks to students. Celeste noticed the necklace immediately. The sunlight reflected against its polished surface exactly the way it had years ago during happier mornings with Elias. She froze, unable to look away. Every tiny scratch matched the memories locked inside her heart. Rather than confronting Nolan publicly, Celeste quietly asked one of the organizers to introduce them. Nolan greeted her respectfully, unaware that his necklace had already shaken her entire world. During their conversation, Celeste carefully asked where he had found the pendant. Nolan smiled softly and shared the story of the stranger who had rescued him as a teenager, explaining that the necklace represented hope more than any possession he owned. Celeste listened with trembling hands. Every detail matched Elias's compassionate personality. He had always believed strangers deserved kindness without expecting recognition. Yet something still felt impossible. According to every official report, Elias had died months after Nolan claimed to have met him. The timelines refused to fit together. Unable to let the mystery go, Celeste began privately reviewing old records from the accident that changed her life. She requested archived rescue reports, weather logs, and forgotten witness statements that investigators had overlooked years earlier. Hidden within hundreds of pages, she discovered one overlooked document mentioning that Elias had participated in an unofficial humanitarian relief mission shortly before his final deployment. During that mission, he had reportedly rescued an unidentified teenager from drowning near an abandoned dock. The report ended there because the incident seemed insignificant compared to larger operations. Tears filled Celeste's eyes. Nolan had been telling the truth all along. Still, one question remained unanswered. If Elias had given away the necklace before the fatal mission, why had official investigators listed it among the belongings believed lost at sea? Determined to uncover every missing piece, Celeste tracked down retired Coast Guard officer Graham Holloway, one of the last surviving members of the rescue investigation. Time had slowed the elderly man, but not his memory. After hearing about the necklace, Graham admitted something he had carried like a burden for years. The rescue operation had been overwhelmed by violent weather, damaged communications, and political pressure to close the investigation quickly. Several personal belongings were listed based on family descriptions rather than confirmed recovery. The necklace had never actually been seen after the accident. Investigators simply assumed Elias had still been wearing it. The revelation shattered years of painful assumptions. Celeste realized the necklace had never been trapped beneath the ocean. Instead, the last meaningful decision Elias made before his final mission had been giving away the symbol of their love to save a frightened young man's future. Rather than breaking her heart, the truth somehow healed it. The necklace had fulfilled exactly what its engraving promised. It had helped someone find his way home. Over the following weeks, Celeste and Nolan continued meeting, not because of the necklace alone but because they discovered shared values rooted in compassion, resilience, and service. Iris quickly formed an affectionate bond with Celeste, whose quiet kindness reminded the little girl of the mother she barely remembered. Together they visited schools, veteran centers, and youth shelters funded through Celeste's foundation. Nolan often shared his personal journey, encouraging struggling teenagers never to believe their current circumstances defined their future. Every speech ended with him touching the silver anchor pendant, explaining that one stranger's kindness had changed everything. Watching Nolan inspire others allowed Celeste to see Elias in a completely different light. His greatest legacy had never been a company, a medal, or even their marriage. It had been the invisible ripple created by one selfless decision. Because he stopped to save one hopeless teenager, that teenager grew into a devoted father, a respected Navy officer, and a source of hope for countless families. Kindness had multiplied across generations in ways no one could have predicted. One bright spring morning, exactly 13 years after the tragedy at sea, Celeste announced the opening of the Rowan Compass Center, a community program dedicated to supporting military families, grieving children, and young adults aging out of foster care. Rather than displaying the silver necklace inside a glass case, Nolan continued wearing it every day. Celeste insisted it belonged exactly where Elias had intended, around the neck of someone whose life had become living proof that compassion never disappears. The center's entrance instead featured the engraved words once hidden on the back of the pendant, "Always find your way home." Visitors from every background stopped to read the inscription, many wiping away tears without fully understanding why the simple sentence felt so powerful. Perhaps it reminded them that home was never only a place. Sometimes home was the person who believed in you before anyone else did. Sometimes home was forgiveness after years of guilt. Sometimes home was discovering that even unbearable loss could plant seeds of hope for someone you've never met.